Are you currently swimming in eggplants right now? I know I am. I have a bowl full of them and more that need to be picked. Last year, I showed how to preserve eggplant 4 different ways, but this year we are going fresh from the garden and I'm going to show you 4 delicious ways to cook with eggplant. Baba ganoush, string bean stir fry, ratatouille on garlic toast, and even a meatless meatball. These recipes are healthy, simple, and perfect for getting the most out of your harvest. But before we start cooking, let's talk about why eggplant deserves a place in your garden and on your plate. They are packed with fiber, supporting healthy digestion. They're low in calories, making them a great option for weight balance. And they're high in antioxidants, especially niacin, which is that purple pigment that helps protect your brain cells. They also have potassium and magnesium, which support heart health. So not only are they tasty, but they also boost your nutrition. Today, we're gonna start with the baba ganoush, which is a classic dish. It's roasted eggplant with blended tahini, garlic, and lemon juice, and it just becomes a creamy, smoky dip that is perfect to eat with pitas or with vegetables. It also happens to be vegan and gluten-free. Let's get that recipe started. Now, for this recipe, we want to use about 2 pounds of eggplants, and this is more than we need, but 1 is not quite enough. So I'm going to use 1 of these large eggplants and half of another. If my smaller Rosita type Italian eggplants were ready, that's what I would be using, but they need a little more time on the vine. So we're just going to take half of this guy and all of this guy. My oven is preheated now to 450 degrees. So as soon as I get these prepped, they can go right in. And I am just gonna make them into some longer slices so that they'll roast a little bit quicker. I've got my slices and I've got a baking sheet lined with some parchment paper. So we're gonna put these on here and that's just gonna help keep the pan clean, help keep the eggplant from sticking to the bottom of the pan. And we're gonna brush these with just a little bit of olive oil. That's gonna help with flavor, it's gonna help with the roasting. So just a nice little drizzle over the top and then we'll get that rubbed in. Now I do like mine to be nicely coated with olive oil and it really does absorb it quite quickly. So you're gonna need a little bit more oil than you think because it's going to look dry in some areas even after you put the oil on. The salt that I'm going to add is not so much for flavor. It is really just to help draw out as much moisture as possible. It's gonna sweat it all off as it draws moisture out. So you can be a little bit liberal with your salt here. And now I'm gonna put this into the top third of the preheated oven. And this could take 30 to 40, sometimes even 50 minutes, depending on how thick your eggplant is, because you want it to be very roasted, very soft when it comes out. So we'll just check on this periodically. And then while this is cooking, we can move on to recipe number 2. Our next dish is going to be ratatouille on crispy garlic toast. I have not made ratatouille before, but one of our viewers mentioned it and I knew I had to give it a try. This is a traditional French recipe that combines fairy tale eggplants with zucchini, tomatoes, and herbs, or basically all the summer flavors in one dish. It's the perfect dish to whip up while you have things coming in fresh from the garden. It is a very satisfying appetizer, but also sturdy enough to serve as a main dish and impress at the table. I'm really excited to try this one, so let's get started. Ratatouille is a dish that uses a lot of fresh vegetables. So we are gonna be using 2 of the fairy tale type, or in this case, more specifically, Chinese string eggplants. We're gonna be using 1 whole sweet onion, about 5 cloves of garlic, 2 green peppers, 3 smaller zucchinis, and 4 to 5 Roma tomatoes. Now the eggplant, from what I read, the directions for the eggplant is to get them diced down first and to soak them in some ice water, which helps remove any bitterness. And I will show that, we're going to do that. But honestly, the eggplants that you grow in your own garden that are picked fresh, especially all the different heirloom varieties, to me, they're sweet. They don't have any bitterness to them, but we'll play along with the recipe that I found. So I'm gonna start by slicing these down. Actually, we're gonna dice. Everything is going to get diced. So to dice these, I am just going to slice down the middle so we can make some planks. And then we're gonna make strips out of those planks, and then we will get them diced. I'm not gonna do too small of a dice, or I feel like they would just disappear into nothing. I want there to be some texture to this. Definitely need to sharpen this knife, but I think we're gonna get through today's recipes okay. The directions say to soak this for about 10 minutes, so we're gonna prep some other vegetables. I think this is also gonna help the seeds and the eggplant from turning brown too quickly. So now that this is soaking, I'll just move that out of the way, and we can do the onion. There's our onions. And with bell peppers, what I like to do is pop off this top when I'm doing dices, because this is perfectly usable. And we just get rid of any seeds that cling to the top. This is a lot of bell pepper. I'm not the biggest fan of green bell peppers, but I wanted to follow the recipe since this is the first time I am making ratatouille. Trying to keep everything about the same size just for mouthfeel. Directions don't say that, it just says to dice. That looks good. We're gonna turn this on to a medium-low. And half a cup of oil per the recipe. We'll get that hot, and then we'll add our peppers and onions. Oil is sizzling on the bottom of this pan now, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some of this veg in there. And since this has to cook in here for about 10 minutes to get everything softened properly before we add the eggplant, I guess the eggplant is going to get a full 10-minute soak in cold water. But we can go ahead and start prepping some of the garlic and tomatoes and zucchini now as well. And then I am just going to stir this periodically just to make sure that nothing burns. And we'll also be checking on our eggplants that are roasting in the oven as soon as my watch timer tells me to do so. Need to check the oven. It is getting soft, but it's not there yet. And that was 20 minutes. Hey Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes. Actually, that was 30 minutes because I forgot to set the timer and it was about 10 minutes. So I'm just gonna go in 10-minute intervals now just to be sure that I don't overcook it. Although I don't really think you can over roast eggplant. It just softens down into such an incredibly creamy, earthy, and delicious texture product. I love it. The recipe for the ratatouille says that we need to peel our tomatoes. So that's going to be interesting. I'm using one of my Japanese paring knives, hoping that it is sharp enough. And I'm just cutting the stem ends off. I definitely need to put knife sharpening on my to-do list this week. It makes all the difference in the world when you have sharp knives. I could use a vegetable peeler here, but I think I can get this probably a little bit better with my paring knife. And I went with 5 tomatoes rather than 4, just because I know I'm going to be losing some of the pulp in here by peeling it. I've never, other than canning and parboiling or blanching my tomatoes, I don't think I've ever peeled tomatoes before. Do you make ratatouille? And if you do you peel your tomatoes? I would love to know in the comments below, because this step is new to me. Also, if you do make ratatouille and you have a phenomenal recipe that you think I should try, let me know. I looked through a few different recipes. This one looked pretty good. It's got a lot of garlic in it. Since I don't know one from the other, this is the one I'm using. But if you have one that uses different ingredients, different quantities, please let me know. I love a vegetable dish, especially if we can source from the garden. And these are Roma tomatoes. That's what the recipe called for. Roma tomatoes are meatier. They don't have as much water content to them. It's the ones that you use to make a sauce with. Although I use both kinds of tomatoes to make sauce with. Gotta make sure we don't start browning in here. I think we're almost ready to add the eggplant. So before we do the garlic, I'm gonna get this just drained through a colander. And we can just kind of let that drip into the bowl while we do the garlic. This recipe calls for 5 cloves of mashed garlic divided, and we're just gonna mash them, which helps take the jackets off. Now you could add more or less garlic if you'd like. We do like garlic quite a bit, so I'm gonna go for the whole 5 cloves. All right, we're gonna divide this in half and reserve some. And now let's get our eggplant added to our peppers and onions. These are nice and soft. The onions are translucent now, so perfect timing. And that needs to go for about 10 minutes as well, just to soften up that eggplant. I'm gonna make sure that it's well coated with the oil so it doesn't burn. And my timer is telling me it is time to check the oven again. And these look really good. These are nice and soft, so we're gonna go ahead and let those cool off. We can turn the oven off and set these aside. They have some nice caramelization on them. Those are going to be delicious. So I think the eggplants took about 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes. And this looks yummy. I'm reading my recipe here, and the ingredients say 5 cloves of garlic, mashed, divided, but the instructions: drain the eggplant well and add it to the onions and peppers. Cook, stirring occasionally for another 10 minutes. The eggplant won't be fully cooked. Then add the zucchini, the tomatoes, the garlic. Reduce the heat to low. Cover, cook, stir occasionally until the eggplant and zucchini are tender, about 30 minutes. Then stir in the basil, season with salt and pepper to taste, and cook another 5 minutes to blend the flavors. I don't see here where we're dividing the garlic, so we're not going to divide the garlic. We are just going to add the garlic when it's time to add the garlic, but the last vegetable we need to prep here are these zucchinis. And they also need to be diced about the same size. So we're going to do the same method. We're going to make some planks and then some sticks and then some dices. A lot of vegetables that's going in here. And this is not going to take 10 to 15 minutes. This is cooking up nicely. Those eggplants are already softening. They're already pale in color. So they're almost ready. So we're gonna go ahead and add the tomatoes and the zucchini and the garlic just as soon as I am done prepping them. Probably could have gotten away with 2 zucchinis, I think, because this is a lot of vegetables. I don't know what I was thinking ratatouille was. I thought it was some sort of a stew. Tomatoes here are gonna add some liquid to the dish. I think you can see that this is very soft. It is definitely cooking down. So we're gonna go ahead and add that mashed garlic, the tomatoes and their juices, and the zucchini. This is gonna make a lot of food. This is a great way to use up vegetables that are coming out of your garden. I bet this is gonna taste amazing, especially with the fresh herbs in here. So this is gonna need probably 10 minutes to cook the zucchini and the tomatoes down. I probably could have added those at the same time that I added the eggplant, because the eggplant, the peppers, and the onions are definitely fully cooked at this point. So I guess the recipe depends on, I don't know, what eggplants you use. So we need to reduce our heat to low. I'm gonna give it one more stir, and then we're gonna cover this and let this go. Well, let's see, the recipe says about 30 minutes until everything is tender, but I think it's gonna be done well before then, so we'll probably check it after about 10. Now we're gonna get started on prepping our meatless meatballs. I have already smally diced 1 cup of onion, which is about half of a medium onion. And we need 2 pounds of eggplant. So this is the half of the eggplant that we didn't roast in the first batch. And then I've got 1 eggplant right here. And I am peeling this eggplant, which kind of pains me because the skin is so incredibly healthy for you, but it's a texture thing when it comes to the meatballs. And how I am doing these is I'm just cutting the eggplant into some wedges just to make it easier to peel. And then I can just use my paring knife to cut the outside skin off. And then we dice these down into small pieces, about 1/4 of an inch. And it is not necessarily easy to peel eggplant, but it's not hard either. It's just that the eggplant is so spongy and soft. And then we just have 1 dish left after this. So whether you are looking for a main dish, a side dish, or an appetizer, something in these 4 recipes should suffice for you. I think people are always looking for new ways to either use or preserve their eggplants because they are just in such abundance in the garden. And I admit that at the end of the season, if I do not feel like I have put up enough eggplant to get me through winter, I am not above going to the farmer's market and buying half a bushel or a bushel of them. So if you like eggplant or you would like to try eggplant for some of these recipes or even some different recipes, check your local farmer's market if you don't have your own garden. They usually have a nice variety of different types of eggplants. But the nice thing about growing it yourself is you get to choose the variety. These are the Oswald. They are my favorite globe. They are just so prolific and they get so nice and big. And again, they are not bitter. They have a sweetness to them. But I just think that's true when you grow your own. They don't sit in trucks or on shelves. They're fresh. All right, so once these are peeled, we're just gonna dice them down into about 1/4 inch dices, cubes. And these are turning a little brown in here because of the oxidation with exposure to the air, but that's okay because they're gonna be a meatball. Nobody's gonna know. Now, the nice thing about these meatballs is they're freezer friendly. So this is a great make ahead fall or early winter pullout when you feel like having a nice, healthy, and tasty meal without all of the prep. Got some nice, freshly picked basil, and I am gonna chop this down. This is probably more than the recipe calls for. It said a cup, but this is what I brought in, so this is what we're gonna do. I might hold out some leaves because that is a lot of basil. And then it says to let this cook for another 5 minutes just to marry all the flavors together with the salt and the pepper and this fresh basil. Now this is either Genovese or Emily basil. Those are the 2 types of sweet basils that I grow. And this is basil that didn't even make it into my garden. It was extra plant starts that I did this year that I just put into a pot on my patio in front of my little seating section. You may have seen that on some video. So this is pure bonus basil. I'm gonna season this with some salt. Salt and pepper is to taste. So as much or as little as you think you would like. Always go with less salt at first because you can't take it back out if you add too much. But I know what we like here. And some basil. And then we'll get this stirred around, heat back on for about 5 more minutes. And then we can move on to the meatballs. It smells pretty good. We're gonna preheat the oven to 425 because they will bake in the oven once they are ready. We're gonna turn this burner on to about a medium and add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the pan, or basically cover the pan. We're gonna add the 1 cup of finely diced onions, and we're gonna cook those for a couple of minutes until they're softened and just starting to get brown around the edges. Now, this eggplant meatless meatball dish is something totally different. They're made with roasted eggplants and breadcrumbs and Parmesan and herbs, giving them a rich, savory flavor with a soft texture, and they're perfect for pasta night or as an appetizer with the marinara dipping sauce. They are utterly delicious. I'm gonna be serving them with some red sauce as well as some mozzarella. And I think the fresh basil on here at the end is just gonna take it over the top. And these can be stored in the freezer as part of your eggplant preservation method if you'd like to pre-bake a whole bunch at once and store some for future you. These are toasting up nicely. The onions have a little bit of brown on the edges. So I'm gonna mince in some garlic. I'm going with 4 cloves of garlic here. Actually, it's 3 cloves, but 2 are small, so I'm calling it 4. And I want all of that garlic. And then we're gonna add as much of the eggplant as will fit in here at one time. If I have to do it in 2 batches, I will. And I might add just a little bit more olive oil in here because it looks like the onions did a really good job of soaking that up. But look, we got all of that in. These are coming along nicely. It's been about 5 minutes, and they should take about probably 15 to 20 minutes in all to fully cook. And when they're fully cooked, they will be very, very soft. We're gonna be mashing these down with a potato masher once they come out of the pan. I don't see that they're releasing a ton of water or really any water at all, so I'm just making sure that they're not burning on the bottom of the pan. And I could add just a little bit of water in here to make sure that they don't, but right now they seem to be doing okay. I'm just gonna keep them moving. But don't they look like seasoned potatoes? They look delicious. You could probably add a little splash of vinegar in here and serve them just like this for a delicious side dish. That's a bonus recipe right there. The vinegar really helps bring out their sweetness. It's just a delicious add to eggplant. And here I went and picked some fresh spinach out of my green stock, about a cup's worth, and we're gonna chop that down. And when this eggplant is fully softened, we're gonna add the spinach in, give it a good stir, and then we can move on to making our meatballs, because that should be done here in a couple of minutes. This is just gonna add some green, some extra fiber, some extra nutrition, and a way to use up more that you have possibly growing in your garden right now. Or maybe you have some fresh spinach in your refrigerator that you need to get used up. So this should be really just flattening out when I touch it with a spatula, and we're not there yet. It's fork tender, but it's not really mashable yet. So we have to wait until it is. If you notice that it's starting to burn on the bottom of your pan, you can turn your pan down a little bit, but I think that we're looking pretty good here. So I'm gonna leave the heat just where it is, and we're gonna let this go a few more minutes, up to 10 more minutes probably, and then we'll add the spinach. I think this looks incredible. I would eat this as a side dish. Just throw in some red wine vinegar, good to go. In fact, I think I'm gonna scoop a little bit of this out, and we're gonna test it with just some red wine vinegar once it cools down a little bit. We'll see how we like that, as is. And we do have some crust forming on the bottom of this pan, not a big deal, but I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of water. Just gonna add a 1/4 cup, and that's gonna help also deglaze the pan, which is also gonna help steam these guys, and the water will cook off. It's not gonna make the meatballs any soggier than they would be at this point right now. Let's test this for mash readiness. Oh, I think we are getting really close. Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and add the spinach now, mix it around, let that wilt in here for a minute, and then we'll get it out and we'll start making the whole meatball dish. That looks great. We're gonna get our softened, fully cooked eggplant, garlic, spinach, and herbs into a bowl, a wide bowl, so we can use a nice potato masher in here. And this pan is clean. There is nothing stuck to the bottom of it. That little bit of water at the end of your cooking or right after you take the food out while the pan is still hot really is a nice trick when it comes to keeping cast iron seasoned and pretty. Now I'm just gonna mash this with a potato masher, and it's just going through there like butter. Oh, it smells incredible. It really does. And now we have to let this cool down for about 10 minutes because we're gonna be adding some cheese and some eggs, and we don't want the eggs to cook when we drop them in here. So we're gonna give it just about a 10-minute rest. We're gonna go in with 1 egg now that this is cool enough that it's not going to cook that egg. And we're also gonna go in with about 1 1/3 cups of breadcrumbs, but I'm not gonna add the full amount just because there wasn't a whole lot of liquid released from these eggplants, so I don't think it needs quite that much. And then I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon here of garlic powder. And now we're gonna go in with some grated Parmesan cheese. This is freeze dried because that's what I have right now. And so we're gonna go in with about 1/2 cup of that. And we're gonna get that all mixed together. And if it seems a little bit dry, I might add a little olive oil. And if it seems a little bit wet, I can add more breadcrumbs or more Parmesan cheese. But because the Parmesan cheese is freeze-dried, it is going to soak up moisture from inside of here if there's any extra. I'm just doing a rough mix on this right now, and that looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna go in with my hands and just make sure that everything is really well combined. The oven is preheated to 425 degrees, so that is ready to go. And once we get these in there, they're only gonna take about 15 to 20 minutes. But then we're gonna finish them on the stove in some marinara sauce and some shredded mozzarella. Going to be delicious. And I did taste this once it was done with the spinach, and it is pretty incredible. It is really delicious. Here I'm gonna do about 2-inch meatballs, so about a cookie scoop worth. And we're just gonna make that into a nice solid ball. You can wear gloves if you don't like to get your hands messy in the kitchen. I don't mind it. This feels perfectly hydrated. I don't need to add any more liquid or any more dry ingredients. And there are still some pieces of eggplant that are not fully mashed down, and that's okay. I think when we make meatballs, like regular meatballs, there are things in there like pieces of onion that don't get fully mashed down, right? So that's a little bit of a bite inside your meatball, and that's okay. We're gonna give these a little bit of room on this pan because we have the room available. And this is the same pan that I used to roast the eggplant earlier for the baba ganoush. I just put on some new parchment paper, so I have less things to clean and put away when we are done. Now, if you find yourself with an abundance of eggplants at the end of the season, I would recommend making a whole bunch of meatballs and putting them in your freezer. They will last for months in there, and you can just pop them out at any time to save your future self meal prep time. I'm trying to make them all about the same size so they all cook for the same amount of time. This smells so, so good. And I still have my little bowl that is not mashed down and doesn't have spinach in it that we are going to test with that vinegar. So we got about 15 meatballs here. You gotta love Sky. She's always got a lot to say, so much energy. These are gonna go into the preheated oven for 15 to 20 minutes until they are nice and golden brown. I'm gonna put these on the bottom third-ish middle rack. Hey Siri, set a 15-minute timer. Siri is so helpful. Let's give this just a little taste because I've been in the kitchen cooking all afternoon and I haven't had anything to eat yet today. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a little red wine vinegar in there. Mix it all around. And let's see. That's really good. That's phenomenal. Probably a little less vinegar because I didn't have all that much eggplant in here. But the eggplant is sweet, and so it pairs really well with the tanginess of the vinegar. I got a little bit of that garlic flavor in here, the sweet onions. This is really good. And that's the last of it. I would make that again as a side dish for sure. It's very similar to the roasted eggplant dish that I did last summer. I can put a link to that up here, though it's not my recipe. I found it on Pasta Grammar years ago. It's utterly delicious. It does call for the long, skinny eggplants and red wine vinegar and fennel seed, and it is my favorite side dish, although this is really good too. We have one more dish to start, and then we will get everything finished. While this pan is available, before we start the stir-fry dish, I'm gonna go ahead and make some of the toast that we're gonna eat with the ratatouille. I've got a little piece of garlic here that I have already prepped for the stir-fry, and I'm just gonna rub that on some bread. It's going to release the yummy garlicky oils onto the bread without being too overpowering. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of butter, and I'm gonna make toast the way I make toast, which I call cowboy style, which is really just pan-fried bread and butter. It just works beautifully. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the backside. So this is gonna be like a garlicky, buttery crouton that we can dip into that ratatouille. It's going to be delicious. This makes quick work of toast. I don't have a toaster. I got rid of that years ago because we just don't eat toast all that often and it takes up space. So this is what I do instead. This pan hasn't been washed, so we've got layers of flavors in here that all have to do with eggplant, which is fine because that's what we're gonna be putting on here anyway. That side is almost done. We're just looking for the butter to be melted and for it to get a little bit golden brown. And this is just French bread. That's what I grabbed at the grocery store. Looks perfect. And that is all it takes. Toast ready. We'll let that cool down a little bit while we get started on the stir fry. I've got the cast iron skillet on about a medium, and I'm gonna add a very generous amount of olive oil in here, about 1/4 cup probably. We're gonna be cooking a lot of vegetables in here in steps. We are gonna start with the green beans. So this is about 10 ounces of green beans that I've washed and I've trimmed and I've cut down into 1 to 2 inch slices. This video is getting long, so I prepped a little bit off camera. I'm gonna get those stirred around. I washed my dishes, so let me grab my clean spatula. Now, this is gonna be a quick cook, but it sounds like that is just a tad bit high, so I'm gonna turn it down to a medium low. And we are just gonna cook this for maybe 2 minutes. We're gonna soften the green beans and just put a little bit of color on them. So if you have fresh green beans coming out of your garden, as well as eggplant, this would be an excellent dish to try. And this is 2 of the long skinny eggplants. It's 1 Chinese string and 1 Nagasaki long. And then I have peeled, crushed, and chopped about 7 cloves of garlic in here. And then I have 1 thumb-sized piece of ginger that I planked really thin and then julienned. And then I have 1 serrano pepper cut into some larger dices. Larger so they can be picked out if somebody doesn't want a hot pepper in their stir fry. You can always sub that for something more colorful and or a sweet bell pepper too. I'm keeping these moving so they don't burn. Right, we're gonna grab these out. I'm gonna leave as much of the oil in the pan as I can because it's got more work to do. This is such a quick and easy dish to make. Garlicky green beans and eggplant stir fry. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the eggplant. Now this has been cut to about the same size as the green beans, and this is gonna take a little bit longer to cook. Now you can tell when eggplant is done in stir fry when it is very soft and it's starting to get brown on the edges. I love the different colors of the eggplant. The Nagasaki long has more of a green fleshy color, and then the Chinese string, which is the lighter purple one, that has more of a white fleshy color. It's just so pretty. If you don't grow these types of eggplants today in your garden, but you like eggplant, I would highly recommend it. They're really prolific, they're easy to grow, and they're so sweet coming out just picked from the garden. We're gonna grab these out. Everything's gonna go back into the pan here in just a minute for a little bit longer of a cook, but for now, these look good. This has gotta be one of the easiest and quickest meals you can make with your abundance of garden eggplant. These are the serranos, the garlic, and the ginger. Now, how much of each of these you wanna add, totally up to you. All right, that is looking really good. I'm gonna add in some soy sauce, or what I used is coconut aminos. We're gonna go in with a healthy splash of that, about 2 tablespoons worth, a little bit of oyster sauce, about a tablespoon's worth. Let me get that stirred around. Let me get our veg back in, get everything mixed through. That looks so good. All right, now we just need a little bit of pepper. I'm gonna use white pepper and a little bit of salt. Another couple stirs through the pan, and this is ready to go. And that's done. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the heat, and I'm just gonna put them right back in this bowl. We'll set them aside because we need to finish the meatballs and we need to finish the ratatouille, no, the baba ganoush. I have to tell you that I did try the ratatouille already. I had to. I was starving for one, and I just really wanted to try it, and my socks were kind of knocked off. So good. I can't believe I thought that ratatouille was something completely different, and I've never tried it. Do yourself a favor. If you don't make it today, give it a try. So good, and really an incredible way to use up a whole bunch of different vegetables from the garden. I'm gonna set this aside, I'm gonna clean out this pan, and then we are gonna move on to finishing those meatballs. Look at our meatballs. These came out looking so good. And I got an open jar of sauce in my refrigerator, so I'm gonna pour that in. And I'm just gonna drop a couple of those meatballs right in. That sauce is gonna heat them right through. Go ahead and flip that. That is nice and toasty warm. And this can be served like this. This can just be served in a bowl as like an appetizer. Oh, so good. Wow. Really good sauce. That's sauce that I made last year. Throw on a little bit of shredded cheese. But again, this would also be amazing over pasta. Meatless meatballs. These should be warm enough. The cheese is starting to melt on top, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off, and we're just gonna get these plated. I can see the cheese getting stringy in here. We definitely want this amazing homemade pasta sauce. This smells amazing. Beautiful. The roasted eggplant that we started with is totally cool now. We definitely want to catch any of this hard skin or hard roasted parts in the mesh strainer before everything goes into the bowl. The skin just peels off so easy once it's roasted. If it doesn't, then it's not done roasting. And we also want to try to get out any extra moisture from here, which is another reason why we put the mesh strainer here. That looks great, and that's quite a bit. We do have some moisture down here, so we're gonna let that drip for just a minute. All right, our eggplant has dripped off liquid, and I'm just gonna wipe this bowl out. We're gonna use this bowl. So just take out the liquid, and then we're gonna drop the eggplant in. And to this, we're gonna add 2 cloves of garlic. Now, I just crushed this to take the jackets off, and I'm just gonna mince that in here. Use the back of the knife, take it off the mincer. I'm gonna use a little bit of fresh flat leaf parsley, just picked. And I'm just gonna chop that down. Smells so good, this parsley, super good. We're gonna add some lemon juice, just about 2 tablespoons or so. You can adjust that at the end if you want more. And that lemon juice is going to help break down this eggplant, and it's going to help wilt that parsley just a little bit. So this is a dip, so you want it creamy and soft. To that, we are gonna add the tahini, and then we're gonna stir that until it is really well incorporated, and that's going to be about 1/4 cup. Tahini is just sesame seed paste, and we'll get that fully mixed in, and that's gonna just help bind everything and add a creaminess to it, kind of an earthy flavor to it. And now we're gonna add olive oil. We're gonna add between 1/4 and 1/3 cup. And we're just gonna drizzle that in, and oh, the aroma really hits you now with that tahini and the eggplant. As soon as the oil goes into the bowl, it's incredible. All right, so that is 1/4 of a cup. We want it very well incorporated, and we have a little room to add up to 1/3 of a cup if we think it needs a little bit more. We want this nice and creamy, and it should be a light color, which it is. This looks so, so good. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt, a tiny bit of cumin, just to add a little bit of a smoky flavor. We're going to get this all stirred together, and I'm going to taste that. See if it needs more salt. Nope. More lemon juice. Nope. That's perfect. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil over the top, and I'm going to add just a little pinch of smoked paprika for garnish. And baba ganoush is ready. Ta-da! 4 amazing eggplant dishes from garden to table. I can't wait to show you how good these taste. So where should we start? Let's start with the meatballs before they get cold. So I'm gonna move the amazing stir fry out of the way. And I did put a couple extra meatballs on here. Oops. I did put a couple extra meatballs on the plate just in case somebody wanted one that didn't have sauce on it. So I do want sauce though. So I'm gonna cut right down the middle of one. I feel like this is like a smorgasbord. It's amazing. I definitely want sauce, and I want some cheese. So this looks like it has cooked perfectly. Let's see how it tastes. You would not miss the meat. That is insanely good. That is so good. It has an incredible chew to it, and you don't miss the meat. It's so flavorful. So good. Okay. I'm gonna eat the whole meatball. Yep. So good. So glad I have more than half a tray of those to put in the freezer for later. All right, next are green beans. I'm gonna use my same fork because we're all family here. So this was so simple to whip together, super easy to cook. The flavors are amazing. The ginger in here, I can smell that already. You could even put a little drizzle of sesame oil over the top if you wanted to. I'm gonna get a nice bite with both green beans and eggplant in it. It smells incredible. The oyster sauce, the soy sauce, the ginger, the garlic, delicious. This is something that if it was on a takeout menu in a Chinese restaurant, I would order every single time I ordered in. So it's that good. It is that good. So good. But it's not on the menus. You got to make it yourself. Winner every time. Okay. Let's try this baba ganoush. I'm saving the new one for last. So with the baba ganoush, I just chopped up some bell peppers, and I am just gonna try it like that. I'm gonna get a little bit that has a tiny bit of the smoked paprika from the top and a little bit of that extra olive oil, and let's see how this tastes. It is incredible. This would be good. This would definitely be good on some pita bread, a light cracker, dipped with carrot sticks. The bell peppers work beautifully. Cucumber rounds. This is utterly delicious and really easy to make. I know that we started with this and then we ended with this, and this was a long video. Believe me, it was a longer day for me than for you. But this comes together so easy. I just knew that this could wait until the end. Easy recipe to put together. Okay, let's try this ratatouille that I made with my Cowboy toast. And again, I mentioned that I did try some of this already. I had a little spoonful of it while it was still in the pot, and I was blown away because you just wouldn't think that when you mix a ton of different vegetables together that you would come out with something that was had amazing flavor. The texture is really good. There's sauce at the bottom. You could dip your bread in there, but here goes. I'm almost ready to call this one the best, although the stir fry is my favorite. The meatballs are amazing. The baba ganoush never fails, but this one, wow. I could see this even being used as a sauce on top of pasta. I mean, this is incredible. So to the viewer who suggested ratatouille, thank you so much. I never would have gone looking at recipes. I never would have thought about giving this a try. And this is insanely good. Definitely going to be one of my summer go-tos right here. It's that good. I don't know if I can stop eating it. Wow. So there you have it. 4 easy, healthy, and delicious ways to cook fresh garden eggplant. From the smoky baba ganoush to the hearty meatless meatballs, these recipes highlight just how versatile eggplant can be. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out last year's preservation video for 4 ways to use up your harvest, and let me know in the comments which recipes you think you'll try first. Thanks for joining me for another Sunday Fun Day at ABC Homestead, where we try to make a better choice for our health, our wallet, and our future. We'll see you next time.